Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to the Oz and Crew Reviews podcast. I'm Oz, and once again, my co-host Mad Matt is with me,
Excellent.
and once again, we have Test Zero with us tonight.
Why are you quoting Mr. Burns?
Just seemed natural.
And today, we're talking about the good Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Ta-da.
It's sad that it took this long to get a good Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Seems
mean-
Saturday didn't do decently, mostly because that first one left such a sour taste.
Well, that and when it came out, the whole OGL scandal was going on.
That too. That probably didn't help. There's literally Hasbro and Wizards
really is
undercut the
unfortunate
movie.
that this movie didn't do too well, because this is far and away the most entertaining, watchable D&D movie out there. This is a phenomenally made movie, honestly.
Yeah, it's probably like the best fantasy setting movie we've had since like the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, I'll give it that. So should I guess should I do the whole this brief plot synopsis then?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, long story short, our main character. Let me look at the actual IMDb here so I can remember names. Chris Pine as Edgin. Edgin is a former Harper. He left because he stole from the Harpers some treasure that they had originally confiscated off of a red mage. Come to find out, the red mages also tend to leave their mark so they can track their stolen loot if they can find it. And it took them to Edgin's home where his wife was murdered. The only person to survive the encounter was himself because he happened to be gone at the time, and his daughter, who was safely kept in a hiding space so he could get her out of there later. Time passes. He meets Helga, a barbarian. Let's see here. Also going through all the list here. Simon, who is a well-meaning but often very bumbling sorcerer. And they also eventually meet, where is he? Forge, who is, I guess, a con artist and helped them set up odd jobs. Essentially, they were a group of well-meaning thieves, if you can call it that. They essentially didn't want to harm anyone. They just wanted riches, and they mostly plundered from people who they knew could easily survive whatever they stole from them in the long run of the scheme of things. But long story short, they get in contact with a sorceress who then hires them for a job to get her something. But in the meantime, in order to get, because it's against the Harpers, in order to convince Edgin to join, he is given a chance to find a tablet that should be able to allow him to resuscitate his now long dead wife. Everything goes tits up when he grabs the tablet. The sorceress casts a time pausing spell. The only one to get free of it was the sorcerer, and the rest were imprisoned. The main two, I should say, Egan and Helga, were imprisoned. On their, I think it was second year of being questioned on to whether or not they should be allowed to be free, even though they passed the test to possibly get free, they managed to grab a hold of a I'm not sure which bird-like being that was.
An Arakra.
And it was an Arakra? All right. They managed to grab a hold.
Yeah.
Oh, Kokra?
And Aarakocra, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So they managed to grab a hold of a Kokra, who was also supposed to be part of the judges, and literally jumped out of him, using him as a hang glider out of a window in a giant, tall tower prison. They basically forced him to eventually start hang gliding for them, and they managed to crash land. He survives without too much injury, although he does seem to not want to move from the landing spot, while the other two quickly gather themselves up and book it. They managed to finally get...
Probably got the wind knocked out of him.
Possibly a bit. Although I think it was more of his knees are probably sore as hell from some of the crash landing from the initial impact. They managed to get back into town when they find out that Forge has somehow managed to land himself the role of Lord of Neverwinter. So they head over that way to try and find out what's going on. They get in contact with him, find out he's been spreading lies to Egan's daughter, Kira, and that they are basically forced to go on the run again after he tries to have his own guards kill them. This lands them the decision of trying to get another new team up and running with the plan of heisting the gold out of the planned tournament that's coming up at Neverwinter, and that they're going to heist the gold. Everyone's going to leave. Everyone's going to be pissed with Forge, and he's going to basically lose his position. And the red mage that ends up being what this original sorceress was, it would lose her chance to do whatever she was planning on doing, hopefully. Long story short, they managed to finally get their way in, only to find that all the treasure is gone. They find out that Forge is putting it on a ship and that he's planning on leaving, and he's going to take Egan's daughter with him, still feigning that she's his daughter now, more or less. They survive the games and managed to actually break out of them via a cube slime, which was shifted out of the game during the hit of a gong. Every time a gong hits, essentially the puzzles and traps shift, and that includes some of the monsters, like the gelatinous cube that they hit in. They managed to get out via that and head basically into the main dungeon again. Get back to the ship before everyone else. Stop Forge, but then as they're about to leave, they see the incoming spell that's supposed to kill everybody, and that includes all of Neverwinter and turn them into undead minions of an evil guy. I can't remember his name. Says?
Yes, Saz Tam, I think was his name.
Upper Red Lizard Lich. Ah, that would explain a lot. He reminds me of another guy, but I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, they stopped, so they managed to use the staff that they used in order to open up essentially portals in order to break in, to now use it to dump the entirety of the treasury that on the ship off of the arena to get everyone in Neverwinter to leave the arena and out of reach of the spell. The sorceress gone berserk starts to attack the heroes, to which they reply in kind. And as she's about to do another time spell to kill everybody slowly, Egan's daughter, Kira, comes by with the magic device that she uses to hide, which was given to them back before they had to leave and were captured, and puts it on the sorceress, which then allows them to not only undo the spell, but also beat the hell out of her because she no longer has any magic spells to cast on anybody.
Yep.
And thus ending the spell, and also freeing Lord Neverwinter. Everyone gets medals, and Forge is captured by, what is his name?
Zank,
who is basically a paladin that they met when they were trying to get the helmet that allowed them to do some other stuff that they were doing. Also, finally got the trying to get the helmet to work was also the big moment for the half elf sorcerer, for him to finally break through and become a little less wild magic-y with his spells.
Yep.
yeah, that was a long, rambling synopsis.
I mean, this is not a short movie.
It's very, very broad strokes.
Yeah,
but
there were things you think you actually missed, but you got the basic
you got
gist
the
of
broad
it.
strokes, but don't let it sounds like a rambling synopsis, but this was a very, very good movie. This was very,
It's a very good movie, and you have
entertaining.
and if you're gonna do the plot quickly, you need to skip a lot of details, and
Right.
there's a lot of details to be had.
Yeah, but going back to the beginning, I think it was such a great opening to have him. You know, he's telling the truth, but he's essentially telling them a sob story to try and get him and Holga pardoned.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bird guy walks in, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what was it? Jarnathan was his name?
I think Jonathan.
Hey, Jarnathan grabs him, jumps out the window.
Like, we were about to approve your pardon. But yeah,
They just assume.
Then it's sort of an introduction to the audience. That he tells them their backstory. It's exposition for the audience.
Yeah,
and I think he even starts the sentence with "as you know." He starts his recap with "as you know," which is like, okay.
Yeah, it's just it was funny because they just assumed they weren't gonna approve the pardon, so they took a hostage basically. It really it you just got his backstory, and then it immediately kind of shows you the kind of character you're dealing with. Just going straight into the story or the movie. Um, what what would you guys say were your favorite actors in this?
Hmm.
I thought the girl playing the druid was really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
she pretty much looked perfect for the role she was playing. Like I keep forgetting she was a tiefling
uh,
because she kind of looks more like an elf to me. But
Yeah,
Sophia Lillis, and yeah, she looks a lot more like an elf. There should have been a lot more makeup, but otherwise, the rest of it worked out really well.
yeah, she looked like someone you'd expect to be a druid.
and
Matter
but
of
she
fact,
just like the way she interacted with everybody, just this sort. She almost had like this sense of bewilderment, like that she was better than them, but she was still kind of trying to learn from them. So it's just this weird kind of expression that she would always have, like, "What exactly are you people doing here?"
Right.
matter of fact, actually, I would say that her look was actually probably more inspired by second edition D&D, which is also kind of a bit of a eyebrow raiser.
Well, I mean, like a lot of the more iconic characters come from that time period.
True.
So most stuff people are going to draw inspiration from are probably going to be from that time period.
But at the same time, I would argue that tieflings weren't that very popular as a race until like third and
Right.
fourth edition.
Right. Tieflings were really only introduced as a playable race in second edition as part of the Planescape campaign setting.
Mm.
It wasn't until it wasn't until probably third edition that they made it more of a normal thing to even see them on like the regular material planes.
Actually, I would argue it still wasn't a regular thing until fourth edition, because I think then they actually made it a player character race at that point, like in the main handbook.
But I know that the previous editions, like they were at least in, um, additional books beyond the core rules.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I liked. I actually liked Zank the most,
Oh, the
the
paladin.
paladin, because
Oh, he had a
he
lot of good play off of a lot of people in that group.
well,
Yeah.
and he had the doesn't deal with jokes, doesn't really deal with
Yeah, this as I
expressions,
commented, we are watching this. This is essentially a fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy.
right? But the thing is, and that whole personality thing just works for a paladin character, where like they just they're pure and to the point kind of characters for the most part. At least if
They
you're
don't
playing an actual good paladin, where
they
you're
don't deal with sarcasm. They don't deal with irony. They just kind of they're
the,
very
the,
straightforward. They're good people, and
the,
they're not dicks.
the weird
At the
thing.
same time, I wonder if maybe he does get it a little bit because once in a while he could tell he's frustrating people and just gets a good smile out of it.
Yeah, yeah. When Edgin says to him, or mumbles, "I hate you," and he clearly heard it. He just smiles. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe we should go over some of the more interesting scenes that happen. So after they find out that Forge betrayed them, and by the way, you said that Forge had his men try to kill them. He actually wanted his men to send them back to prison, but Sophina told the guards to kill them. Forge didn't actually want to kill them until later in the movie, oddly enough.
To be fair, I'm not sure if he was or wasn't aware of what she was planning. He could have been part of it and just initially said, "Get them out of here."
Um,
So that way they wouldn't panic right away.
but
Just my
then,
thought, but
but
no.
then they find out that they need to get a team together to be able to re-infiltrate the place. That's when they end up recruiting what was the name of the Doric,
Dork the Druid.
the which that for some reason my brain just thinks that is a guy's name. Like it doesn't sound like it would be a girl's
Yeah,
name.
yeah, it does kind of sound like it might be a guy's name, but yeah.
They recruit her and she scopes things out and they realize that the only way they're going to get past the magical barrier on the vault would be to get this helmet. So they have to find the helmet, which is where they had the first really big comical moment that plays on the actual game mechanics because they go to a graveyard and start using speak with dead on the corpses of a bunch of members of a barbarian tribe.
Yeah, so if anybody ever wanted a new season of Pushing Up Daisies, this is probably the best you're gonna get.
Where they play off the fact that you can only ask 5 questions before they just go back to being dead.
Yeah, the undead interrogation scene is really amazing because I really gotta have to commend sort of the costume design and makeup effects in that scene as well because I think it's really common that people have an innate fear to death and the undead, so they had to walk a very careful line here, making characters that are interesting enough that and are clearly corpses, but you're not like repulsed to look at them.
Right. Just the first one they revive to ask questions. They literally waste all of their questions by accidentally asking stupid things that were
In the
like,
script, he is called the Yes Corpse.
yeah, like they were basically they were basically stating rhetorical questions out loud, which counted towards their question count. And he's like, no, I wasn't asking you that.
Are you really the head of the Quickie Mart? Yes. You? Yes. You? Yes.
Ah, dang it.
Then but then the other one they got all the information they could use out of him, so we had to ask him random things so he could go back to being dead. I can't remember everything he asked him. I just remember the last one was what was 2 plus 2, and he just goes, "I'm not good at math," and then dies.
Not,
You asked him
I'm
what's
not
his
the
favorite
math.
food. You asked him what's his favorite food. Uh,
Oh yeah, and whether or not he likes cats, not really.
yeah. The other guy asked him what his favorite book is, and he starts rambling for a bit. And then they end up leaving him behind, so he's stuck there alive until the end of the movie.
Yeah, he's a quick mid-credit re-reference. Hello? Can someone ask me a question? Hello?
Can I ask myself a question?
But yeah, I was entertained by that after I watched it after I had played Baldur's Gate 3. So obviously didn't watch this when it originally came out. Um,
So you use Talk with Dead in Baldur's Gate 3,
yeah,
and it's very similar to that.
there's a bunch of situations where like there are other ways to get the information, but the easiest thing to do is to just question corpses, and you'll run out of chances because you couldn't figure out what you were supposed to ask first, and then you have to go find another corpse and ask them questions based off of what you already learned from the other corpse. It's very similar to the way they dealt with it in the movie, except obviously without the joke answers like "What's 2 plus 2?" I don't know. That was that was entertaining, and then the whole going to the Underdark thing, which they managed to cram a lot of stuff in this that like people that don't actually know D&D wouldn't know what the hell they're talking about.
But with a name like Underdark, obviously you can sort of assume that it's like it's an underworld, it's a dark place, it's a place where a lot of danger is. So they're very good at making this accessible to people who don't know everything about the setting, who don't know everything about
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons.
But I think we can all agree the best part of the whole Underdark part, aside from as TZ said it, Simon getting a portal gun
Portal
staff,
gun, yeah.
the chonky dragon,
Themberchaud.
that was just
A
I don't
giant fat cat that can't breathe fire anymore.
I don't know whose idea that was, but that was just it worked way better than it should have for such a goofy idea.
I guess it's the idea that whenever they execute somebody, they throw it down into the Underdark, or they throw it to the, because they always had that in the fantasy movies. They throw him to the Grumble or whatever, the Grongle or whatever it is. It's just this massive creature that eats everything. It's like, well, what happens when the creature is fed everything and doesn't have to hunt? Well, it gets really fucking fat. As you see all these bodies, all these skeletons lying around its cave, is like, this dragon has been eating very well.
Quite some time.
And he just starts sliding after them and rolling around and all kinds of weird shit. Where it like it was like watching, like you could have, if they did motion capture, you could have seen this being done by like a fat cat.
Like one of those fat cats that they're not allowed to track the record of in Guinness anymore.
Yeah, because it encourages people to overfeed their pets, which is bad.
Yes, don't
Not
overfeed your
torture
cat.
Yes, let's not torture the cats, please. Thank you.
Not give them breathing problems because they're too big.
Like the dragon here.
That whole scene was just well, I guess they were fighting before that. They were fighting these unkillable undead assassins. One of them got eaten by the dragon, I guess. Well, that one's not coming back because he's gonna get digested.
Not down to the last molecule.
Let's hope it doesn't come back.
Otherwise, it's
That,
permanent food for the dragon.
that would be shitty.
Or that,
Wah,
yeah,
wah.
yeah. The idea of him still being alive and crapped out.
Or he's just permanently digested because he keeps regenerating.
Make the dragon get even fatter. So then they get the helmet after escaping this dragon and having all the other crazy shit happen. And then, of course, Simon can't actually attune to it.
Yeah, it keeps getting confronted by, I believe it was his great grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of his ancestors. Essentially, he's just telling him that no, you're not a powerful enough sorcerer. You don't deserve to be able to use this helmet, and he's basically trying to convince himself, because that's what my interpretation is, that is, he isn't really there. That's just a manifestation of his own self doubt. So the fact that he
Most likely.
is, by the time he does actually attune with the helmet, is when he stops doubting himself and just punches the guy in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point it turns into himself and it just goes, finally, you found your self-worth. And boom, everything just starts working.
Right. But before that, when originally he couldn't get it to work, they had to come up with a plan B for how to get in, where their plan was to hide a portal in a piece of treasure that would end up getting put in the vault. And the thing they used, and I mentioned this while we were watching, and I did look it up, was a picture of Volothamp from the Forgotten Realms setting. And I know it's actually him because when I did a Google search, the painting that they used is the picture for the character in his fan wiki.
Oh,
So it's like, yes, that was who that was. I wasn't just imagining it. There wasn't just someone that looked similar that I thought was Volo. It was Volo, which I found amusing. I didn't notice that the first time I watched the movie, but
well, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, who's that supposed to be? Because they show him just enough to make you go, that's got to be somebody.
that's got to be somebody from the actual setting. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, pretty much the same painting now. I think the one in the movie, though, is a little more red.
There any other scenes you guys thought were particularly interesting?
Of the dragon.
I just really like the scene in the labyrinth and the battle in the arena.
Oh, the arena, the
The
arena
arena
battle.
battle, yeah.
I just thought that was really cool the way they have the stuff move around. They have the walls coming in, then they throw in the displacer beast, which I've never seen. I've seen a displacer beast done in a couple of pieces of media. I think there's one in there's one in the beat 'em up game, Shadow of
Arcade
the
games, yeah.
Star, and but it is presented in a slightly different way. It's almost like it's in two places at once, which is sort of is here. But in this movie, the displacer beast sort of projects itself elsewhere, which I think is a really cool way of interpreting it as well.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
I think they also handled the displacer beast that way, rather than there just being mirror images of him next to himself, because that
It is a
way,
much more visually interesting way of doing it.
well,
Yeah,
it's also presented in a way where anyone watching it, even if they don't know what a displacer beast is, can figure out what's going on.
Yeah, they can
yeah,
figure out what's going on by what it's doing.
because you can actually see its tendrils up, sort of projecting the other thing, which is the only one giveaway that it's not actually there. You
Hmm.
have to
Because
aim for the one that's projecting itself.
we all immediately recognize it as a displacer beast, but they don't say that in the movie. They never
They only
actually
say it
say,
in the caption that says "Displacer Beast growls."
yeah,
Actually, I think someone in the betting room mentions a displacer beast, but they don't say what it is.
right,
Point blank.
Because yeah, I knew it was a Displacer Beast as soon as I saw the tendrils, and I think most people who are into D&D would recognize that as well.
right. Well, and then they had a gelatinous cube, but they didn't call it. They didn't say what it was. They just called it that
Didn't say what
thing.
it was, but that thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
Oh, and on top of it all, too, with this entire scene going on in the arena, there's technically 3 hero parties going through this, trying to get through this dungeon crawl. And it turns out that one of the groups is the animated series heroes.
yep.
which is just so that's just such an amazing reference because like clearly this movie was made by people who are fans of D&D, not just the game but all the interpretations,
All
and
the
they have
medias,
seen
yeah.
everything that's happened to D&D over the years, and they're like, no, we want to do this right.
These
We're
guys, these guys, even if we don't get to talk to them, they need to be at least visible easily in the background.
Yeah, yeah. One, I think they did a good job of not making sure to show them too close up, because the one scene where you almost get like a real good look at them, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, the kid isn't really a kid. The one
Yeah.
that's like
Well,
the little
you
The
just kind of
barbarian.
barbarian
assume
one.
it's an older version of them.
Yeah.
Right, right. But the thing is, the reason he was so short in the cartoon was because he was actually a little kid. So like an older version of him should actually be about the same height as the rest of the party. But my point is, I think that's why they didn't show any of them real close up. It was because of that. So you wouldn't think,
Yeah.
oh, that character's not really the age they're supposed to be or anything like that. I think that's why they didn't really show them close up very often, for the most part.
Or I guess they don't want to draw too much attention to it. They want it to be kind of a little cameo
Yeah,
background
it's
gag.
an
Mhm.
Easter egg. It's an Easter egg.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing with the painting of Volo. It's an Easter egg. It's a thing. It's a thing that's there that people that know what it is will notice it, but anyone else, it's just a part of the scenery.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was a great throwback, and I remember before it came out, there were people talking about how there was supposed to be an Easter egg with them, but I didn't know what they actually did with it until I saw it. Which that's at least that's at least the second thing that they've been an Easter egg in, if not more, because they were also referenced in Baldur's Gate 2.
Huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think there was something like something you could read in Baldur's Gate 2 that kind of implies that they all had a grisly end, more or less.
Oh,
'Cause I think it implied that they got eaten by Tiamat or something. I can't remember exactly.
ooh.
Ooh, that's a way to go. At least they got eaten by a powerful creature, not like killed by a gelatinous cube or something.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
were.
they didn't slip on a rock and hit themselves on a on the bathtub.
Oh God. Yeah, I forgot
One
that
of the
was
best stories.
One of the corpse stories, that was how he died. They realized they got the wrong corpse. It was the brother of
Yeah,
the guy
that's
they were
my
supposed to.
brother.
I thought you died on the battlefield. No, that's how I died.
I died at the latrines.
Uh, of course, the funny thing is, the main villain, Sophina, the Wizard of Thay, I guess for some reason all the Wizards of Thay are bald. I don't
You show
know.
off the runes. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, every time I see a character like that, I have a friend online that is like obsessed with bald women. So every time I see a character like that, I immediately think of him. So that was the thing. I was just sitting there going, I wonder if he would like Sophie.
She she wanted to show off her she wanted to show off her Daisy head. That's the actress's name is Daisy Head.
Oh,
Oy.
oi,
Woof.
you using puns now?
Yeah, this is the kind of fantasy movies that people really should be supporting because this movie is very entertaining. It's an introduction to fantasy. It's not just and they don't use magic as a it's magic, we don't have to explain it kind of thing. It takes fantasy seriously. It really is the kind of stuff that I mean the fantasy genre is kind of flooded with this absolutely inane unrelatable, morose, boring derivative crap like Aragon, for example, that people just see and they think, oh, this is all just stuff it's all just creatures fighting and dragons and fire and nothing makes sense. It's like no, you have movies like this that actually tell a very relatable, very human story. It's about a father trying to let go of the fact that he lost his wife, but where meanwhile he's losing his daughter when his daughter basically has a mother now. He was raised together with this other woman. That's kind of the crux of this entire movie is just this family relationship between these two. And it has nothing to do with like, oh, we need to save we need to save the druids and we need to save this magical crystal to save the world from this evil wizard. It's like, no, this is a family connection. That's the main
Right,
crux of the story.
right. They basically just end up saving the city at the last minute because it's like,
That's
well,
something that they can do.
it's
Well, he
something
did
it's
make an
something that
oath
they
to,
could do, and
yeah.
they'd feel like shit if they just walked away.
And he did
Hmm.
make an oath to he did make an oath to his order. So it's like, yeah, okay.
You know what? Fine. Let's make the oath happen. Here's Plan D.
Yeah, it was the
Or
whole,
actually, be E.
they realize Neverwinter is basically going to be destroyed, and he kind of has a, oh, fiddlesticks look on his face as he turns the boat around to go back.
And he makes good with his promise. He shares the gold to all the people of Neverwinter.
Like, the only thing that I really felt was kind of off. Like it never really comes up in the movie, so it doesn't really affect the plot. But like when I was originally looking at this, I was like, why doesn't he have a weapon?
He is a bard.
Yeah.
Well,
His
in D&D,
his guitar.
bards have weapons. Bards are like
Yes.
very good sword fighters. Bards are like a jack of all trades,
Yeah.
master of all trades,
Yeah.
essentially.
Because
But depending on how you play your bard,
Right.
their guitar is their weapon.
Yes, but in D&D, usually a bard wouldn't necessarily have to be a sword, but they would have a weapon of some kind, and they also have the ability to use magic, and they they wrote him as a bard in the way that somebody that hasn't actually played D&D would assume one would be, where his whole thing is just
Playing music,
music.
yeah. Playing music and having high charisma and being able to
Yeah.
redeem like rumors and things.
Because he never casts a spell, he never uses a weapon. But in spite of that, in spite of the fact that going in, I assumed that was just gonna be like a glaring flaw to me. It just never actually mattered.
Yeah,
So
because
that's good. That's good
he's such
writing,
a yeah, exactly. He's such a charismatic character. You feel like he never should need to actually get into a battle.
right? It was. I went in expecting that to be a massive flaw in the writing, and they managed to just make it not matter. Like that's an effective way of. That's just an effective way of writing to make something that should have been a flaw not even matter. You don't even think about it. You do even all the scenes that's happening.
I mean, how long was he sitting there trying to cut his wristbands when they
Yeah,
were about to be killed by the guards?
yeah. He
And
was.
that's when you just kind of keep failing your strength check.
Yeah,
I
just kept
don't.
failing his strength check while the barbarian's out there just covering his ass, whipping everybody in the room.
And if we're actually talking about the game rules, that wouldn't really be a strength check. It's just like, well, I mean, I guess that could affect how quickly you get out. But if you're in a situation where you're able to rub your ropes on something that would cut through it, eventually the character would get through it. That's not something you could just fail out
Yeah,
of completely.
you wouldn't just strength it. You would probably do a strength check for how long it takes.
Yeah, it's not. It wouldn't be like a lock pick check where if you fail, well, then you're just not able to pick this lock. Because realistically, if you're rubbing ropes on something hard and jagged, they're gonna tear eventually.
Yeah. But again, you're bringing D&D logic as a DM into this sort of
Yeah,
thing,
well,
which
you're the
is
one that
helpful
mentioned.
a lot because a lot of the stuff in this is a lot of the stuff in this does feel like kind of a D&D campaign gone wrong. They'll make plans and then the plans will immediately fail. Then they'll make backup plans and somehow both backup plans will succeed. And it's like that's kind of D&D in a nutshell.
Yeah, I was gonna say you say D&D campaign gone wrong as if that isn't every single D&D campaign ever made.
Exactly.
Like
I've seen
Like
campaigns go
whatever happens in
far
a
more
D&D
wrong than
campaign
this.
gone right.
like you go into any campaign, at some point the players are gonna steer things in a direction you didn't plan for, or they're gonna make a main character out of what was supposed to be a throwaway NPC, like a kobold named Tom Ado.
Goddamn Geralt.
We've had so many we've had, we've had so many campaigns where just there's just a
Hell, I am
character.
just like literally all the NPCs in my Conan game that I played with you guys. Holy Lord, all of them.
All of them were just like originally supposed to be throwaway characters that kind of, well, yeah, because
They were just supposed to round out the party just because they need a little help because it's a 3-man group, and all of a sudden it's just like everybody's a love interest now. Like what? Geralt is love interest now. What?
yeah, and we had
Oh no, it's the creepy wizard. Get away from me.
had a massive pirate crew because I kept forcing enemies we defeated to join us.
That too, and I had at least a couple of them. It's just like, okay, where are they now?
Well, now you two are
man.
just reminiscing about D&D.
But that's what happens, and that's what this movie technically
Yeah,
is.
exactly. It's the
This-
kind of movie that even if you're a fan of D&D, you're going to absolutely love it. But even
Yeah.
if you're not a fan of D&D, if you're just interested in fantasy, or have you have a passing interest and you want to kind of see what the fantasy genre can be done if the story is told well, this is a very good gateway movie into fantasy for someone who just likes good movies.
Yeah, if you are, even if you're into, yeah, if you're into fantasy, or your only interaction with D&D is playing the video games, even.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
obviously people that play the video games will get a lot of the lore too,
Yeah, a
they're
little bit of those broad strokes. Yeah.
but they're not gonna be as like dedicated to it as someone that's actually played D&D. But still, if you're into fantasy at all, you should enjoy this. If you've played the video games, you should enjoy this. If you're
And
actually a D&D player, you should enjoy this.
people
Uh,
would compare a movie like this to maybe Lord of the Rings, but I think it has a lot more in common with something like Indiana Jones.
Well, it's also hard to
Honestly.
really compare it entirely to Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is
The
actually
very serious action.
well,
Oh yeah,
well, not
very
just-
serious. But
fantasy.
it's like it's
Not
not,
just
just like
that.
serious action, but it's also serious fantasy. But it's also like all medieval and like all open fields and stuff. So where a lot of this thing kind of takes place in a city. It takes place with just kind of like normal people. It kind of takes place in kind of you could almost see this taking place in like a Western setting.
what I
Honestly,
what
there's
I
just not a lot of technology, but they still have magic and stuff.
what I was going to say is Lord of the Rings is an adaptation of a already existing pre-written story. This is a completely new story that was written for an existing setting.
Right.
Yeah. I would also argue, though, too, outside of even just people into the fantasy settings, if you're interested in a visual spectacle, this one treats you. If you're interested in just character arcs and interesting personal stories, this one will treat you. If you're in it for the slapsticky comedy once in a while, if it's written properly and fits everything else, this one does it.
Yeah,
This
this
literally
seems
has
to be one of those
everything that
movies
a
that has
good
been for
setting should
everyone. Yeah.
have.
Right.
And even like there's a lot of practical effects in this. It's not a complete
Oh
CGI
yeah,
shitfest. There's a lot of like well done practical effects
they
intermixed with the CGI, which is what makes them so effective.
They literally save a baby tabaxi that was literally there, as far as I could tell, on set from the mouth of a giant CGI fish and give it back to its mother. That's a thing that happens.
And they don't make it like a big plot point. It's just they're doing this to indicate that this is a multiracial society. They have like cat people, and
And
they're
also
treated just
to
like regular
introduce
people.
one of the side characters because he's the one that's helping make this happen.
I think the fact that this is not an adaptation of a pre-existing story actually works in its favor because
Oh, probably.
you remember when we were talking about Aragon last time, like one of
Yeah.
the big issues with the story pacing in that was it felt like it was jumping all over the place. Like
Remember that plot
True.
point? Don't care what happens in between.
right, you could tell that they were skipping stuff that they had to cut for the movie, but because this story was specifically made for a movie, you don't have to worry about anything like that.
Yeah, they could worry about telling a story within the context of okay, we have 2 hours to tell the story, and like, how are we going to do it? We're going to use a framing device. We're going to have him recap what happened to the parole bureau, and then he's going to break out to kind of tell you what kind of a character he is, and we just kind of jump into it from there.
Yeah, it is. It is. I hope that even if the rest of the D&D brand as a whole goes to shit, I hope this will become a cult classic over time.
Yes, this movie does kind of deserve a lot more recognition because it really is unfortunate that the movie like this did not do too well because it got really good reviews, but this also came out during the time when that Hasbro and Wizards were not have the best people not having the best opinion of them at the time because of the OpenGL shit that was going
Well,
on.
yeah, and they still don't because they've had multiple controversies since then.
So
Yeah.
the only real taint on this movie, it's actually kind of feels blasphemous in the credits when they call this Hasbro's Dungeons and Dragons. It's like
Yeah.
we waited so long to get a good Dungeons and Dragons movie that's not just a good Dungeons and Dragons movie, but just a good movie in general that is set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, and they have to call it Hasbro's Dungeons and Dragons. Like, no, this one should belong to Gary Gygax. Honestly, this is the one that deserves to have his name on it.
And I really,
Yeah.
I really don't. This is kind of off topic, but I really don't like it when a company that has acquired a property feel the need to put their name in front of the property
Yeah, that too.
because
Yeah,
the other instance I can think of where I remember this rubbing everyone the wrong way was when Disney acquired the rights to Doug and it started being called Disney's Doug when it
well,
started as a
yeah, I guess because that was to sort of distinguish it from Nickelodeon's Doug. That they did change a lot in the new season. So they
right,
changed kind of the setting. They changed a lot of what the character interaction. It really was essentially a reboot of the series. It just wasn't a reboot that happened like 4 years later.
right. Although I want with that, I wonder if that just had something to do with the way the acquisition happened because Nickelodeon actually retained the rights to the previous seasons.
Possibly, I'm not sure.
But anyhow, I think we've more or less said anything we can about this.
Gosh, still positively for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Oh
until
yeah. Also, one of the better fantasy movies to also have a sword that shoots its blade.
no.
oh,
I only know of two of them, and both of them are pretty good so far.
so any closing thoughts from either of you?
This is a good movie. I hope to see more good fantasy movies like this. This is a very good. I we People deserve better movies. Honestly, I'm starting to realize that there's only two genres of movie: good and bad.
That's a pretty
Yep.
interesting viewpoint.
Everything else is just shades of gray. Uh, but yeah. In general, this is just an overall decent movie. It's a very entertaining movie. I can't really nitpick much of anything in this. It's honestly all solidly done. What we need is people who actually give a darn about telling a story, and at least in a one shot.
Yeah, not everything needs to be a
Uh,
three-part
yeah.
franchise.
You know what? You can continue the franchise with a totally different story with totally different characters, maybe sometime like a century or two later when most of them aren't around anymore. Thumbs up. Let's go.
And I can't really. I already told you my only nitpick, and it was something that once the movie got going, I didn't care about, which was the
The
bard
Bard.
not really actually representing the character class from the game, but it just didn't matter. That it was a good movie anyhow.
Oh, by the way, the last second throw up for a funny scene when they're trying to sneak in and the bardic image suddenly fails.
Oh god, that
That
was
was
nightmare fuel.
that was freaking hilarious.
Yeah, when the illusion of Chris Pine's character Edgin just starts melting and
Suddenly
stuttering.
stuttering, stops moving, starts repeating words, including the F word, and then slowly his eyes get bigger and bigger, and then his head just shrinks between his shoulders, and then finally the image just fails upright.
Yeah, that was nightmare fuel right there.
That was probably like one of the biggest uses of special effects in the movie, oddly.
Probably one of the bigger CG moments, yeah, outside the dragon.
Yeah, the dragon was kind of important too, but yeah, that was that was disturbing.
Now it's a meme.
Oh man. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So until next time, everybody have a good one.
Take
See
care,
you
everybody.
later.